The future of Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I feel like just saying that name, Canes fans are like, I want him out of my house. Tell him to pack his things. This is probably going to go against your instinct, but hear me out. Don't give away Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I'm not saying don't move him. I'm not saying he has to be a Cane next year. I'm saying don't be so dead set on getting rid of him that you do something rash and don't maximize your value. This is where I think it is good to have somebody like Eric Tulsky, the GM, who maybe thinks about players, at least in like a thought exercise, as a number on a screen or a number on a page rather than by their names. Because the narrative is so much worse than the player right now. The narrative is he took an awful penalty that cost you the season. The narrative is he hasn't scored a postseason goal in X amount of games. The narrative is they kept trying to make him the second line center and it just never happened. The narrative is the frustration over the years for the Canes rather than, I'm talking like fan narrative, rather than what he actually is, which is he is an every game NHL player at a premium position. He is a center. Okay? You don't give those away. You don't buy those out. You don't trade them away with a sweetener. You don't be willing to accept eating some of his cap hit to get rid of him. Like the options that I'm hearing for moving on from Jesperi Kotkaniemi don't make sense to me. Like let's break it down a little bit by the numbers here. Okay? He plays center. So don't compare him price-wise, contract-wise, to a fourth-line winger. Don't compare him to the back of the roster defenseman. Compare him to centers, right? For the same reason of, what is it? One of the more frustrating things, I have a group chat that just rants about this every time it happens. In the NFL right now, if you are a mediocre tight end, you get paid more per year than like the third best running back in the league. So it really doesn't make any sense to get mad at your tight end and start going, he makes more than it's Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, but that's not apples to apples. Right now, as of yesterday, when I did most of this research, took all the notes, but nobody has signed a contract extension. So right now, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is the 77th highest paid center in the league. 77th. You talk to Canes fans, you'd think he's making like top 20 center money, right? No, he's the 77th highest paid center in the NHL.
And important to remember in the context of that, too, is the cap is majorly spiking over the next couple of years. So that is worth even less and less over the years. So let's take it logically one step forward. 32 teams in the league, right? If we just say the top 32 highest paid centers are the quote-unquote top-line centers, right? I know that there's bad contracts and everything, but we're keeping it general. Top 32 highest-paid centers are at least paid like top-line centers. The top 64 centers then would be they're getting paid to be, like the value is, if you're a top 64 paid center, you should be a top two-line center. And then if we assume, which I think is fair, that there are at least a handful of top two quality line centers that are still on entry-level deals or are still in the arbitration phase or whatever it is that, they haven't reached their first real money extension. If you throw 7 of those in the league, Kotkaniemi is paid like a middle-of-the-pack third-line center in the NHL with, as you just heard Max add in there, the cap going up and his contract for multiple years, it's only going to get better, right? In 2 years, his contract will probably be paid like a fourth-line center. Like that's where he will rank in the entire league as far as average per year at his position. All of a sudden, it's not that bad of a value proposition, right?
And I'm not saying the Canes have to be willing to eat like, oh, well, in that case, keep him. No, I'm saying when you enter into trade negotiations, don't go in with your hat in your hand and your tail between your legs like, oh, could you please take Kotkaniemi from us? Go in with, hey, I've got your third line center on a great deal. All you have to give me is, and then whatever you like, if you want to go picks, all you have to give me is a future third that could potentially be a second if he plays X amount of games. Like, I don't know what the contingencies are. Like, don't buy him out and just say we'll eat his $800,000 for the next 10 years on our cap. Don't go into negotiations almost too willingly to say, and we'll take on 20% of his salary. No. You can make trading him a priority if you think that he has outplayed or outlasted his time in Carolina, outworn his welcome. If you think just the way the narratives are, the memories that you have, the lack of him reaching his potential, his time is up in Carolina, fine. You can make trading him a priority. I'm fine with that. I'm not advocating for him to, continue buying real estate. Like if he's renting, I'm telling, hey, keep renting month to month if possible. But you don't win cups giving away value for free because you're just tired of it. If you have a piece that's worth 50 cents and you give it away for 25 cents, it's a bad franchise move. If you have a piece that's worth 50 cents and you give it away for 60 cents, you're catching up to whoever you're chasing. And oh, by the way, watching the Stanley Cup final, those two teams you are chasing. That was not it could have been any of us. Those two teams are better than you right now. Obviously, there's some percentage where you pull the upset, but I have a hard time saying that the Canes roster as it is constructed right now is as good as either of the two in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, and to your point, the best teams are built on elite asset management, not making trades where you're on the wrong side of the value and things like that. And when it comes to Kotkaniemi, probably, ideally, when the extension was signed, they were hoping he would grow into that second-line center role. Hasn't really happened yet, but what he can provide, and as you mentioned, it's kind of similar in his pay range, is like he's right there as a middle-of-the-pack third-line center. But yes, the problem with that for him is the way the roster is constructed is that role's already filled by Jordan Staal, and he does it really, really well, and he has for many, many years. So in a world where he is sticking around until Jordan Staal, eventually retires as he is kind of getting up there in age. Like, he would slot in there very well, I think, as a replacement as that third line center. But just as the way it's been constructed and the way, everything has kind of come together through the different trades and everything, it's just like the spot isn't there for the role that he can fill as a good defensive centerman.
And this is why I think it's so important to get a second line center that is different than Kotkaniemi, that is quite frankly a gap better than Kotkaniemi and a gap more effective than Jordan Staal. Is the second line center has to be significantly better than Jordan Staal, so there's no temptation for Staal and that line to play all the second line minutes. Right now, if Kotkaniemi is your second line center, which at times a bunch of times you've tried, right? If he's your second line center, it's just too easy to go, give all those minutes to Staal because you know what you're going to get. The second line center has to be a step above all of that. So again, I'm fine moving on from Kotkaniemi. Part of me thinks, and this is just, probably 20/20 hindsight. Part of me thinks the only reason Kotkaniemi is here is because the Canes wanted to send a shot to Montreal with an offer sheet, and then it spiraled to where we are today. If you want to cut your losses, just don't do it for a free bargain. Just don't do it get a pick back and have somebody take on the entire salary. Get a young player or get a grinder. Get something that allows you more flexibility as a franchise. Don't make it more difficult for yourself just to get a guy off your roster. And that isn't like if he were, an active cancer to the locker room. That like if it's addition by subtraction, that's one thing. By all accounts, that's not it with Kotkaniemi.
And I think more than anything, it would be good to get some consistency at that position. It has been kind of a revolving door. Some people are actually talking about it in our YouTube comments right now. Be sure to subscribe, 99.9 The Fan. They're discussing, Kotkaniemi had a bit of a short leash at 2C. Rosovic filled in there for a little bit. You do kind of want some consistency there, so your guys can get some line chemistry as well. And the Hurricanes, it's no secret they like to shuffle the lines around a little bit, and maybe a little consistency there would help build a little chemistry and help kind of solidify things on that second line.
And that is, by the way, a deal with a fresh start. Like, he has a short leash. He does. That's that, and by the way, that was earned over the last 4 years or whatever it's been. Like, he has earned a short leash. Going to a fresh start somewhere else, none of that history translates with him, right? Rod right now, I'm sure, in big moments, he has flashes of, remember that time he did this? Remember that time he took that penalty? Remember that time he turned it over? Remember that time? Other coaches, let them take the player for what is a reasonable salary, as ridiculous as that sounds, and get something back. Get something back is what my mandate, if I had the ability to mandate what they do over there. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. We will move on, but I will come back later in the show with my pie-in-the-sky dream for what the Canes can potentially do this offseason. By the way, this isn't breaking news, but it's interesting to me. The Canes did announce today that Scott Morrow and Bradley Nadeau have been named to the AHL Top Prospects team, which is the first time two players from the same organization have received the honor in the same season. Which means a couple stud prospects, more than that, but at least a couple winning AHL awards, bunch of draft picks, tons of cap space, most of your young core already locked into long-term, very, very reasonable contracts. This is an offseason for movement. This is an offseason with a lot of potential. You have all the ingredients right there. If Kotkaniemi's the sweetener in the deal to get a big fish into Carolina, love that. That's value that is worth it, right? If it's the and because we're taking so and so, you need a forward that can play every night. Here's your third line center for a little under $5 million a year. Kotkaniemi, sign the paper, send it to the league. If that gets it done, love that as a use of his value.